Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner. It's December now, and that means a few things. Number one, the ban list is coming in about 2 weeks. So yeah, this format is pretty much done at this point. YCS turns all wrapped up, Yu-Gi-Oh won it, and I'm not surprised. A good player was playing it, and he was running about 17 anti-dragon cards. And 17 cards out of your deck designed to beat this, you're probably going to win. Like, he went in to beat dragons, and he did. And that's just what happens when it gets to be a one-deck format, is you start either playing that very deck, or you run things in your deck in order to beat that deck. And actually, I find that concept a little neat. So you're basically running your side in your main, and such forth. And if I were to play something like Unstellars in a major tournament, I'd honestly do the same thing. Main deck goes in match, main deck Iron Wall, main deck 7 tools in order to counter the trap stuns. Yeah, like what he did with his Yu-Gi-Oh works with other with just other decks like that. And the reason why I have my dragons here, of course, is because I'm going to do one more deck profile of Dragon Rulers now that the format is pretty much done. And I'm pretty much finished playing with this deck, at least here. I'll still play every once in a while, maybe on Dev Pro, but basically, I already went to one last locals with this deck, won that, and like, okay, we're done with this. Now we're just going to start building some fun stuff and start building towards the next format. And I've got a rather large pile of cards here that I'm going to be playing around with. Let's see, I've got Photon shit, Mecha Beast, some bugs so I can build old-fashioned Demise. I'm going to do some retro decks too. Boojins, yeah. Started picking up these. Missing some pieces for Lavals. This is so I can build Perfect Circle Monarchs. Just good stuff in general. And let's see, where can I find them? There's the Harpy. Yeah, there's also a lot of Harpy stuff in here because I've been trying to build this deck for quite some time too. So these are my deck projects for the future, and thanks to a couple of things I got in here, I can now actually build Teledad from its format, and I can't wait to start playing in Teledad. I don't know how good I'll be, but there's time for that, and I know a couple of people who'd be interested in playing in the Teledad format. So that's something to look forward to. And one more thing before I go into this deck profile itself, I'm going to ask you guys this simple question. How would you go about handling this deck via the ban list? And what else do you think needs to be done via the ban list? I've got my own ban list in the description box below, so you can comment on that and share your own thoughts on what needs to be done. Personally, I feel that the big dragons have to go to 1. If you hit the big dragons down and take away the 1-card win conditions, the deck basically becomes dead, but at the same time you don't have to do things like hit swords or hit Ravine, because if you hit Ravine and leave the big dragons at 3 or 2, then they're just going to run Dragon Shrine at max copies with max normals, and it'll still be Dragon Rulers. Like, I do think hitting these guys to 1 is ultimately what needs to be done. Konami's had time to sell their tins. They've got Legacy of the Valiant coming up, and it's going to be rather anti-dragon, so I don't think they really need to milk any more out of these guys. And those are just my thoughts on it. So let's get on to this deck profile itself. It is standard Dragon Rulers. It's basically what I've been playing since the start of the format, and you guys know how most of this deck goes. It hasn't changed too much since the last time, so I'll just only talk about the things that need to be talked about. So 12 dragons, 2 debris dragon. For my level 1s, I'm running a copy of Brandistock and Brandistock and Corseska. The reason why I'm running Brandistock is some people are starting to side deck and chain disappearance in order to hit your tuners. If they hit both your Corsescas, you kind of just basically only have one level guard to make synchros with. It also sucks if they hit a debris, but at least this way, if they change disappearance one of your level 1 tuners, you don't lose out entirely on your win tuner searches. But yeah, ultimately though, if you're going to locals, you don't really have to worry about this, or do you? Yeah, that's pretty much why I was doing that. Otherwise, yeah, most of the lineup is kind of the same. I've gone back to running Trigon. It's because I've changed around some cards, and now I have a higher Earth count, so I need the Trigon for the fire popping. And you'll see why I have suddenly more Earths. First off, there's the 3 Max C, and then 2 copies of main deck Fossil Dyna. This idea I got after seeing Dyna kind of do a lot of work over the course of 2 weekends ago. Yeah, that was the ARG Boston. Dyna was used for the guy to win the 1 dragon matchup and ultimately the circuit series itself, as it's basically Vanity's Emptiness, but as a monster. and it's an earth, so you can pitch it with Redox in order to do stuff. You can banish it to summon Redox. A neat play that can be done is making a Stardust Spark Dragon and then using Redox to pitch this guy in order to summon this guy alongside a Stardust Spark, which is actually kind of good. In addition, when you set a monster and your opponent knows you're playing rulers, they're thinking, oh, he must have had a really bad start, and he must have set a Flamval Guard. Well, I can go out of my way to make a Crimson Blader, but doing so, he'll be locked out for his turn, and I can do stuff. And then when they try and Crimson Blader this, whoop, guess what? Nuke the field, and they lose their Blader. In addition, you can also summon this thing off of return in order to stop them from summoning their Battle Fader, which has now become the norm. And that's just really I knocked back Vanity's Emptiness because of how people were starting to play around it. Whereas Fossil Dyna is not so easy. They pretty much have to either Blaster it or Wing Blast it. They can't Trap Stun him. Also, they could Book of Moon him, but again, he's not as easy to get around as Vanity's Emptiness. And then lastly, the Battle Fader. So that's it for the monsters. For the spells I'm running, of course, are 3 copies of Dragon Ravine, which damn well better be a Hollow in Astral Pack 4. Like, come on, Konami, you've had 3 chances to foil this thing up. Get on it. Ugh. 3 copies of Sword, and I figure I would give the Upstart Theory a try, playing with a 37 card deck, blah 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 blah. Not sure how I feel about this, as I had to cut out some things that I was running before, i.e. Torrential Tributes, Solemn Warning, Enemy Controller, and Book of Moon. Like, those are all very good cards as well, so I don't know if it's worth playing the Upstarts over those powerful one-offs, or if playing with a 37 card deck, pardon me, is ultimately that much better. I wonder how a few people would feel if this got hit on the list. Just randomly. That and Reckless Greed. Like, if you did that and then you hit the Dragon Rulers themselves, Dragoonity Ruler would also be dead, but at the same time, Dragoonity would still be playable. And that's ultimately what I want. I am willing to accept Dragon Ruler dying if it means Dragoonities are still playable after the next list. Totally not biased. Alright, now for the traps. 3 copies of Wing Blast. It's honestly the best non-limited trap, I think, in the game. It's so powerful. 2 copies of Trap Stun, now Astral Pack foils instead of those god-awful gold rares. 1 return, and 1 Sixth Sense. I got to play with Sixth Sense this weekend, and I'm not going to lie, it did stuff. I got a 6-card Sixth Sense off against Bujin, and it helped me set off a return play. Oh, yeah, I also got return off a couple times. Like, I was a goddamn sack a whole bunch over the weekend. As for the extra deck, it's virtually unchanged. There's the 2 Draco Sack, Big Eye, Thunder Charger. I took this out and ran a Red Dragon Archfiend. Big mistake, as I ended up having to play against Exodia, and I could have pierced over Battle Fader at least 3 times, and that would have made a huge difference, as this guy and then this guy pretty much handle Exodia rather nicely. Pierce over the Fader. This one forces out either a Fader because they can't Scarecrow it, and this guy being immune to Scarecrow made a huge difference. Oh my goodness. Starter was a huge clutch in that matchup, because I wasn't really prepared for an Exodia deck. He did get me game 1, but then games 2 and 3 I kind of was like, no, none of that. Then for the level 8s, Colossal, Crimson Blader, Scrap Dragon, Stardust Spark, Stardust, Thought Ruler. Then for the 7s, the 2 Ancient Fury, Black Rose, and then the Armory Arm. I'll also show you guys my side. This is pretty much just for my locals, where my 2 most problematic matchups are Bujin and Dragon Rulers. So I just kind of threw in cards to deal with that. So for the monsters, Scarecrow, for when I know the Fossil Dinos are going to be coming in, because they will be coming in. Bujin side that in, at least our Bujin player does, and so does the Mirror. DD Crow, it's either this or Debunk, but I like this guy being able to hit shit before I even have to set it. They put a turtle into the graveyard, get that Crow out of there. Yeah, do that stuff. Or you can just banish a ruler from the graveyard with Crow. So, there's that. 1 Exploder Dragon. Exploder Dragon trolls the ever-living shit out of Yamato, because they cannot crane it and they cannot turtle it. All that they can do is try to prison it, and you've got the Lance for that, or you've got the Trap Stun as well. So, Disaster Dragon players. Exploder Dragon, very good against Bujin, and from what Clark has also been seeing, Blizzard Dragon's also really strong against that matchup too, because if you try and Blizzard Dragon Yamato, they have to turtle it. If they don't, then Yamato can attack on the next turn, and they really don't want to be turtling a Blizzard Dragon. So Yeah, that's some shit to know for next format. Blizzard Dragon's kinda good. So yeah, there's this. I also summoned this guy off of return in order to get around a Yamato with a crane in hand when I was low on life too, which was pretty neat. Last monster is a Snipe Hunter. Discard dragons to blow up shit. You get it multiple times. Stardust can't stop it. It's pretty good. That's it for the monsters. For the traps. Compulse. I figure if I'm going to be siding in more trap cards, I might as well make use of some really good trap cards such as Compulse. Eradicator. It's basically a heavy storm when it resolves. The 2 skill drains. I just put these in order to deal with the possibility of evil swarms out of respect, but nobody plays evil swarms around here anymore. It just can't compete. But I still kept in skill drain for things like Madolche. We have them every once in a while. And if I'm going against Bujin and I have the first turn. Same for Light Mirrors. I was siding these in for Bujin and Constellar if I'm going first. If I'm going second, I'm not. In that case, I'm siding in Smashing Ground. Smashing Ground is an awesome out to Yamato, by the way. And this is going to be a very good card in the upcoming format, I think. Like, Smashing Ground is one of the best outs to that guy. Just, they have to have the hair in order to stop this, but we won't have to worry about the hair until after Legacy of the Valiant comes out. And even then, this forces out a hair so that you can try and pop it with something else. And then my last 3 cards are 3 MST, which went in every game because I knew the Iron Walls and the Vanities, Emptiness, and etc. would be coming. And that's pretty much it for the deck profile itself. Dragon Rulers, and some people will love this deck, some people will hate this. I am indifferent. Well, actually, that's wrong. I actually enjoy playing this deck. Return and Sixth Sense aside, because when I flipped these, I felt like a big ass. But when you don't have those aside, it's actually kind of fun just summoning big monsters, grinding out cards, and using your big monsters and your little monsters to bring out these other monsters. And yeah, the deck definitely required a lot of thinking to do. Like, people will say that this was a skillless, stupid deck, blah 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 blah, and everyone who runs this is a no talent neck decking hack, but whatever. Those people are going to say the very same thing when we have Bujin and Gravekeepers dominating next formats. They'll say, oh, you're so good at this game, all you did was just copy the Bujin deck that won YCS Atlanta, blah 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 blah. Oh my god, Bujins, I'm so sick of this deck. Oh my god, Gravekeepers, I'm so sick of this deck. So, yeah, Dragon Rulers are just the current flavor of hate, that's all. I will say, though, that Konami definitely did goof when designing these things. They should have not have been able to banish other dragons to be summoned. They should have only been able to special summon themselves by banishing 2 waters or 2 fires. I think that would have made them nowhere near as stupid. Yeah, that actually would have probably cut down the playability of the deck itself. They would have just been relegated to being used in their respective attribute decks, but c'est la vie. Being said, I am going to miss this deck in my own sick and twisted way. I mean, as a dragon deck itself, the concept is really neat. I mentioned this before, but dragons that take advantage of being banished? Who would have thought this was going to be a thing when, beforehand, dragons hated to be banished? At least Disaster, Hopeless, and Chaos did. Hyrax were indifferent to it, but then again, by the time Hyrax came out, dragons were going in a really weird direction. Like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but dragons have basically spearheaded interesting concepts of how they operated. Hyrax, they took tributing to a different way. Like, whoever thought tributing a monster would create such advantage that Hyrax do? And now we have these guys. So the question is, what is the next strange concept that dragons are going to take and run with?